accountants. I'm in Werner Schmidt's office, and I'm going to interview him. I'm going to ask him some questions about how the business runs and what exactly they do.
Rob was hard to put in a neat box.
I always found Rob to be an old soul with a brilliantly sarcastic sense of humor, kind of trapped in a young person's body.
He loved the game, he loved to teach, and there's so many people I've talked to, especially more after passed away, they've talked about Rob and how much they liked to be with him.
He really had a passion for life and for pursuing big things, and wasn't afraid to think of big dreams even if they might not happen.
Quite honestly, from talking to people, it didn't matter how old you were, whether you were 5 or 6 years old or whether you were 80. He took such a pride in getting the most out of the lesson for people and teaching to whatever level they were at. Because there was a number of women that now still come to the Pro-Ams every year. They swear that their serve is all because of Rob. And these women weren't going to become superstar tennis players, but it didn't matter to Rob. It was having whoever that was on the court enjoy being there and playing to their best of their ability.
And there's always that little twinkle in his eye, that little playful glance or whatever it is. He always liked to have fun and enjoy life.
He was born to play tennis.
Caring, compassionate, quirky in a few ways, and had a real zeal for life.
Even as a really little kid, we'd go out for walks. He knew every single neighbor, say hi to everybody going around the block. Always just very friendly, always had a big sense of community, I guess.
And Rob always, stuck with his friends. And I think of the people that he played tennis with, as he grew up and all those people. He would go to Toronto, come back. He'd come back here to visit, and he'd always make sure he talked to John and Jacob Miles, and they get together at Christmas. Those things were important to him. He had his friends that he went to public school or whatever with. He kept in touch with them. But he always seemed to make effort to keep in touch with people and this kind of stuff, because his friends and those kind of things his relationships always seemed very important to him.
One of the main things I remember about Rob is that even as a teenager, when most kids don't like to talk about their siblings or have much to do with them, he was very close to his younger sisters and his parents as well.
Rob was caring, and one of the things I remember the most, especially when he'd moved away and he was, in Toronto or where he was there, the first thing he would always ask me, "How are you doing?" And that was the first thing that came out of my, even when I know there are things going on with him or whatever it was, I always knew that he was concerned. He was concerned about his sisters and things that were there.
Rob was the ultimate gentleman, just a real kind, considerate kind of guy. He would come to the tryouts with me with the non-ranked players. All the good players would show up a couple of days later, and he would hit with these guys. A lot of them were just recreational players trying out, not realizing the caliber of player of our city team. But Rob would hit with them and warm them up, give them some tips, and then they would go off and play their matches. So that's the kind of guy that he was. He didn't have to come out and do this, but he did. He's just a real nice guy.
He would never kind of boast this kind of stuff. That was just his style. Because I remember telling him when he was young, I said, the good people never tell you how good they are. You never see Roger Federer saying I'm the best player, but you know just by the way they are. It's the people who aren't so good are the ones that boast about what they do. And I feel that Rob took that to heart, because that's the way he was. There were so many things that would come very naturally and easy to him, but he was not his style to boast about it. He would just show you when you saw it as to how he would do things. Rob was always, he's never really, I'd say, a shy kid. He liked to talk, and he liked to talk about what he did. And so, when he was in grade 1, He talked to his teacher. He plays tennis because he was taking tennis lessons.
Yeah. Miss Lewis.
So he had me invite her out down to Gibbons Park to play tennis with her because he wanted to play tennis with his teacher. He was so proud of how he played. We did this playing around in the park when he was younger.
Good.
When he was about 5 or 6, first thing we signed up for I didn't play tennis at that point in time. I'd never played. I played racket sports. I played racquetball or squash. I'd never really played tennis. But we thought he looked like he liked the racket, this kind of thing. Tennis was popular in the 80s. That was the John McEnroe stuff that was growing. I like to watch tennis. So we signed up for a City of London summer PUC camp. And I think he was about 5 at that point in time that was there. And so that was his first time kind of really being on a court with somebody who actually knew something about tennis, because I didn't know anything about the sport other than seeing it on TV at that point in time. He did the camp. He was the best kid in the camp that was there. And they said, okay, the person, she says, well, if you want to do more, we asked, is there other place to go? And that's when we got John's name.
Rob and I started John's program together right around the same time. And we were in the competitive program playing tournaments, and we'd be at the same tournament a good handful of times a year, right from age 10 through age 18, which is the end of juniors.
When he was younger, we had some issues with Rob when he was about 7 or 8. He started playing tournaments when he was young because John said he was a good player at stuff, but he would get really upset at himself. We had instances where he was throwing his racket. It happened once or twice, and then I know Pauline and I talked to John and said, well, this was right in the era of the John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors. Like, this is when Rob, they were there, and this was kind of like bad boy tennis was a lot in the news, and I don't know whether young people get involved with that. So there was a tournament at Green Hills where it got really bad, and I think Rob might even have won the match, but he threw his racket, he got upset. So we had a little talk. We talked to John first, and I said, we got to stop this, and we don't do this. So with John's support, we kind of went to Rob and said, if you want to play tennis, you just got to stop, because if you carry on, you're not playing anymore. And that kind of, nipped it in the bud, because Rob liked to play. And I think that's one of the things I was always so proud of over the years. He always behaved properly.
And as far as line calls and things too in games, Rob always gave his opponent the benefit of the doubt. He always believed in winning fairly, and that's what I would hope that the kids coming forward would all take that. It's not about winning, it's about playing his game and enjoying being out there. And that was what was most important to Rob.
Early on, because of the age difference, I tended to beat him, and then he hit puberty, and then I had no more chance. That he was too good for me. And then I decided, okay, instead of playing against Rob, I'm gonna ask him to play doubles with me, and then we played a lot of doubles together.
I've only played Rob a few times in tournaments, and Rob was a late peaker in terms of junior tennis. Rob really hit his stride in university. Anyways, basically I had Rob's number up until university. Most of the time that we played, it was just as friends in practice, and it'd be give or take on the day who would win. One of my two of my more memorable doubles matches ever were with Rob. So the one was, we were probably 12 and 13 years old in a tournament in Windsor, and we were playing, I'm not sure if they were the #1 seeds, but they were supposed to beat us. They were older, and our strength, probably especially at that age, was our forehand, and we were losing, and we decided, let's just play from the baseline, and we'll just try and hit forehands, which you don't really do in doubles, but we did, and we ended up winning the match, and they were very frustrated.
As a doubles partner, Rob was very positive. He never gave up. He was always encouraging. 2 or 3 of my best moments on a tennis court would have been when I was playing with Rob or against him.
We were probably, I'm not sure, maybe 22 and 23 years old, playing Tet and Anthony at the Hunt Club in the finals of a kind of open money tournament. And anyways, it was a pretty epic 3-set match. I think they were up 6-2 in the third set tiebreaker, and we came back and won the match, which I don't think in my life been down that drastically in a tiebreaker and won. Anyways, it was a pretty special match.
Tennis is kind of a year-round sport, and be ebbs and flows. Like there'd be sometimes Rob would be really keen to play, and then maybe it got too much and he didn't want to do too much. When he was in his 16s, he made the nationals, and I remember going down to Windsor where there's one of these major junior tournaments, and I think he lost to one of the top players there in a very close match, whether it was quarters or semis or whatever it is, but Rob was right there. Okay, I said, well, you've got, right, but you got to keep playing. And after that match, Rob said, well, I don't think I'm going to play anymore. And we really didn't go any more tournaments after that. He said, I want to have more fun with my friends. Mm-hmm. And he really took a backseat to tennis. And okay, well, I said, that's fine. You got to go on. And then we ended up going to Western, and Western, a good team. And it just seemed that all of a sudden now, like after not playing much for a year, he came to Western, I'm going to try out for the Western team. And he seemed to get invigorated again. And he really started to train hard and work harder, and he played really well.
Every year that Rob played for Western seemed to win the OUAs, and he was always really very big on supporting all the other players on the team as well.
He was playing in the quarterfinals in one court, and I was there, and I remember Peter Taw, another fellow from Western, was there playing another court. And Rob won his match, and so he was playing the winner of Peter Taw's match, a fellow from Mac, in the semifinals. So then I chatted with Rob after the match, and I said to Rob, I said, you're going to have your hands full this morning. Like this fellow that played for Mac, he said he didn't miss a ball. Like he's really good. And the first thing Rob said to me, well, Peter played him all wrong. He said, I am not going to play him like that tomorrow. Peter is hitting his shots right into his game. He said, when you play somebody, you got to make them hit shots that make them uncomfortable. And he said, the first thing I can do is I'm going to take control of the point, I'm going to put him on the run, and that's the way you play somebody like that. I said, okay, Rob, but he looked pretty good. I watched that match tomorrow, and I could see the very first point, he hit a forehand right to the one corner, hit the guy in the run. And it was just a totally different game than I watched the time before. And I said, okay, that's when I knew Rob knew what he was doing on the court, and not for me to talk about.
Going for the ladies, they'd get off to a fast start, building up a 2-1 lead over Western's ace, Rob Schmidt and Bill Anderson. But the boys would come back. Schmidt gets pushed into the backcourt, and watch this, he pulls off a great shot between the legs. This one would go to a tie break. Schmidt now serving for the match. And Hatch's return is long. The guys win the battle of the sexes 7-5 in the tie break, and they get this tennis festival off to a great start.
He was playing somebody from the University of Waterloo. First match, a guy from University of Waterloo would just hit really big, had a big serve, really powerful, hit big forehands. First match came, Rob won easily because the guy couldn't get anything in. All of a sudden the second match came, all of a sudden he started putting balls in, and the guy won the second set. I got right down to the end of the third set, like they're going back and forth. All of a sudden Rob comes into the net and starts serving and volleying. Broke the guy's serve, and he won the match. The University of Waterloo coach was sitting beside me watching the match, and he looked over at me and he said, that was smart. He said, that was a difference. He said, see, that was a difference in match. Rob was willing to change the strategy. He knew this wasn't working, so I got to do something different. He was not afraid to change. Like a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to win by this, and I keep carrying on. Mm-hmm. Rob was great in his matches where he said, okay, well, if this isn't working, I got to do something different.
What we're going to do first is we're going to do a few ground strokes, forehands, backhands, some volleys, a few overheads, have a look at a few serves, and then I am going to play some games with my doubles partner Jason, and then we're going to finish with the tiebreaker, and then after that, I'm going to give you a little bit of my analysis of my game and that. And although I'm kind of quiet on the court and I don't say a lot, it certainly doesn't mean that I'm not having fun, because I really enjoy the game. I love to play. I love to talk about it, and I really look forward to playing somewhere in the fall and in the spring and all year, and I'm really looking forward to improving my game. And I really love to practice, really love to work hard, and so here it goes.
Rob just really enjoyed playing for Western. He had thought about going to university in the States to play tennis, but he enjoyed the education at Western, and he enjoyed the camaraderie of the Western team, and he could play as much as he wanted during the week, but the competitions being a shorter season just worked really well for Rob, because education was really important to him as well, and just the camaraderie of the Western team was what he really enjoyed.
Where's my raccoon rack?
Pardon?
Well, I'm gonna say, where's my raccoon rack?
With your raccoon rack?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here, boys! Santa, where's my rascal? Singer, where's my rascal? Mr. Rascal, Mr. Rascal. Where's that rascal? Where's that rascal? Where's that rascal? Where's that rascal? Where's that rascal?
Conversation.
Where's that rascal? Where's that rascal? Where's that rascal? Why didn't you clap at the end?
Oh, we didn't know it was the end. Yay!
Rob, over the years, I mean, he was a great guy, and he always had plans of what he was going to do, and he never really could see, what's his path in life and where he was going to be. He never could make up his mind for sure. He was very hesitant to really commit to anything in one particular, because after he went to university, he went to Korea to teach for a while, to think about what he was going to do, and then he did a master's. He wasn't thinking he was going to do. And then he also was going to go into law school, and he tried that or something. But at the end of the day, he came back and wanted to be a teacher.
He applied to York, and his girlfriend, I believe, was there at the time, and he didn't get in there, but he got in at U of T. So the York coach is the one that called me first to tell me that, Rob's coming to U of T, and he was quite ticked off because he obviously wanted him at York.
When Rob went to the University of Toronto for his B.Ed after he finished his academic career at Western, he played tennis for U of T under Nabil Tadros.
I didn't really coach him. He knew what to do. He did everything right. So there was very little that I can say to him that would make him a better player. He was just a real pleasure. In any sport, specifically tennis, you'll get some people that get really wound up when they lose, especially when they're in juniors. And a lot of kids end up quitting at 15, 16. They're just taking it way too seriously. Rob didn't. I remember him losing at the beginning of the year. He wasn't really in good tennis shape. He would lose matches, doubles, singles. I'd say, how did it go? What happened? And he would just come, the guy played better than I did. He was much stronger than I was. I've got to get, in better shape. I've got to do this, I've got to do that. But the other guy was, he deserved that match. So he knew the difference between the two. The first match of the season, we lost to a team 7-0. We met that same team in the finals that year. So we were all huddled up, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to say to get these guys pumped up? Well, we lost 7-0, so give it your best. So we're in the huddle, and as I'm thinking, what should I say? What should I say? Rob just steps in and takes over, and he says, we lost to these guys. We have another chance now at them. Go out there, have fun, and there's no pressure on us. And I'm thinking, wow, I never would have thought of saying that. And by that time, they cheered and, they all went off to their courts and did their own thing, and we beat that team 5-2. And then when the awards were given out, Mike Richards from Western, the Western women's coach, he was handing out the awards, and he said, now you know what you need to win a gold medal. All you need is a Rob Schmidt on your team. So, and he was right.
Yeah, it's hard to really talk about. I don't know, especially considering that he was very young and it was very sudden, and there was no reason for it.
I was at home, and the York coach, Mike Mitchell, called me to let me know, and I was stunned. I just, when you get a shocking news like that, your instant reaction is like, is this real?
I had heard that he was sick and had surgery, I think 2 weeks before. Anyways, yeah, it was very devastating news. Like when my mom started saying, "Did you hear about Rob?" Like I was thinking, "Oh my goodness, like he's hurt, or he's been in a car accident." Like that was my first thought, and then I heard that he died.
Just in the beginning of June, June 2012, Rob started throwing up one day, and a week later he was having surgery for a bowel obstruction.
In my mind, this was minor surgery. Of course, minor surgery, I guess in hindsight, is only when it happens to somebody else that isn't close to you.
Rob had never been sick, really, in his life before that. A couple of ear infections as a kid, and that's about it. He had the surgery, was doing fine. I had stayed down there in North Carolina for a couple of weeks.
And I thought, well, there's no risk. Pauline is down here, look after him. Okay, and everything I thought was going well. It was probably around last Friday in June. I talked to Rob on the phone. Last time I talked to him, he sounded upbeat and positive, and oh yeah, I've been through this. Like, I mean, there was no, I had a great conversation with him.
And then about a week and a half later, he started vomiting blood and diarrhea.
But no, okay, but why, there's nothing, that nature was going to happen, like nothing serious. Yeah. And then we're on the plane going down there, and we get a text. He passed away before we even got there.
We were actually...
And you were then in shock the whole way there. We were going to see him alive. We're not going to go see him at his funeral.
He was dead in 36 hours. Like nothing prepares you for that. And it's just a huge shock to everybody. And you wonder why it happens, but there is no answer to that. So the only thing we can do is just carry on and remember the good stuff. Because the rest is awful.
Doug Ho, the McMaster coach at the time, summarized it in an email, and he said he kept rereading the email, thinking that did he read it wrong? Was there something incorrect? Hoping that no, hasn't passed away. He's just not doing well. And that's, I think, everybody's reaction initially, but eventually the reality kicks in.
We're very thankful for the years we had with him, and thankful to John that the tennis community in London wants to remember him and wants to remember all the good stuff.
So after Rob passed away, we were all thinking, we got together with John Hatch, as what could we do to remember Rob? What would be an event to carry on? And, you know, we had various things that we talked about, but John had the idea of having a Pro-Am tournament to raise money for high school tennis.
The Rob Schmidt annual event has been a very special thing. I mean, and it's just very bittersweet that it's because of Rob's death that this is happening.
I think the reason I come from Toronto every year to this event is I felt this club and the members and everyone has always been like a big family. It's family owned and operated, and I've known everyone since I was a teenager, and you start to feel part of the family. I think, I mean, I started as a junior, then I became an instructor, then I worked behind the desk, and I'll always come back.
One of Rob's best friends growing up was Jesse Atkinson. And, you know, he was, I mean, Rob has known him ever since he was in grade 2 or 3. And, you know, we met with Jesse at that point in time. And, you know, he says, you know, what can we do? And his idea was, you know, I think we could set up a fund at the university. And he was instrumental starting the fund going, getting us together to raise some money or whatever it was. And then we got in contact with somebody over at the university. So we started that up as well. And I mean, there's a lot of people who gave some money. We supported it some, and a lot of friends and people have put that money. We've got a permanent legacy fund. We're able now to give a scholarship amount each year to the top, voted by the coaches in there of the ladies and men's. The first people that got awards were people who had been taught by Rob. That was really, you know, a great thing, and, you know, we were able to meet with them and have lunch with them.
It just shows you what an impact Rob had, not only on us, but on them as well. You know, it was equally important. He was just a real special person.
It is hard thinking of Rob being gone, but the fact that his legacy's carried forward through these kids, and that these kids are exemplifying what Rob would have liked to have encouraged in all the kids, is pretty awesome.
Well, I think it's generally what we're looking for, people who have a passion for tennis and sportsmanship, and the way they carry themselves are key factors in the high school award. Rob was a very competitive person, but he always carried himself and behaved properly on court.
What we hope the Rob Schmidt Memorial Award will accomplish for students to come is the camaraderie of being able to play tennis at a great university, get a good education, and be just very well-rounded students, just like we thought Rob was. And at present, the award will go on in perpetuity. So his life will go on forever. So when Rob passed away, obviously Nabil was very hurt by the fact that Rob had gone, and Rob had meant so much to him during those days that he actually has an award at U of T.
It's a combination of playing ability, and it's almost leaning towards being a good teammate, helping others out, just being a kind person in general. Myself and my daughter, who helps coach, are probably the only two that remember him. But still, it's a nice, thoughtful award. I know the kids that get it appreciate it, and you know, the plaque has a nice little picture of Rob on it.
He loved teaching tennis, but I think he loved teaching tennis to kids more than anything else. And that's why he wanted to go into education. That's why he wanted to help the younger people. And that's why I think we are carrying on his legacy. And we're helping the university kids, and we're helping the young children with a sport that was great for him. I think it's a sport you can play all your life. It helps us to remember Rob, and I think it's a real service to what's here
John had one of his suggestions for helping to expand tennis in London was to offer a few class trips a year, and we've been able to get sufficient funds from our pro-ams that we were able to offer for the last couple of years 3 school trips for elementary schools between grades 3 and 6. And so the first year I got probably over 50 requests and had to pick 3 schools, which was extremely difficult, but the classes that were selected were just awesome and so appreciative of being able to go out and play tennis, because these kids had never really been exposed to tennis. He had also been interested in becoming a big brother, which he never ended up doing, but in that vein, that's why we wanted to help the kids that for the public schools and get them more involved. He was always one to be very inclusive and to help as many people as he could. So in May, we paid for the school bus, brought the kids there. We supplied tennis rackets for them, and John had 3 of his junior pros teaching the kids tennis. Then they divided the kids into 3 groups and would rotate through the courts, learning ground strokes, learning serves, learning volleys. And actually, after that first year, one of the kids who is from a single parent family went to Ontario Works and said that her son had so enjoyed playing tennis that they would like them to play in the summer camp. So the John Hatch Tennis Center and our fund each chipped in so that this child could play tennis for the week. It's just so awesome that our school trip had opened this new world for a child that otherwise would never have had the opportunity.
I think since Rob passed away, it just made me a better sense of reality and not assume that things are going to carry on. You never know what the next day is going to bring, so make sure you enjoy each day, take advantage of each day that's there, and not take people and the things you're able to do for granted.
Tennis was a vehicle for Rob to connect with other people, to care for other people, and wasn't just something that he did to kind of pat himself on the back that he did well and to kind of showcase that.
Honestly, I think every day I live in Rob's honor, remembering all the good things that he brought to the table and like giving people the benefit of the doubt, just being as positive as you can, being as inclusive as you can. These were all things that were really important to Rob. Family was really important to Rob. And without that, without the sense of community, what's life? We miss him greatly, every day.